For thousands of years, we've dreamt of artificial life. From the bronze giant Talos in Greek myths to the clockwork automatons of the 18th century, we've always been obsessed with building a mirror of ourselves. But for most of history, it was just a dream. Then came 1950. A man named Alan Turing realized that we don't need to define thinking, we just need to measure imitation. He proposed the Turing test. If a human can't tell the difference between a machine and a person in a conversation, the machine has won. This wasn't just a game, it was the birth of a new species of logic. Today, we're stripping away the magic to see how AI actually works. In 1956, at the Dartmouth workshop, the term artificial intelligence was officially coined. The early pioneers were arrogant. They thought they'd solve human intelligence in a single summer. They built symbolic AI, essentially massive if-then flowcharts. These were expert systems. If you wanted a computer to identify a bird, you had to manually code every rule. If it has wings and if it has a beak, then it is a bird. It worked until it didn't. These systems were brittle. If a bird was missing a wing, the computer crashed. It had no common sense. This failure led to the first AI winter, a decade where funding dried up and the world gave up on the dream. But in the shadows, a few rebels were looking at a different blueprint, the human brain. Meet the perceptron. Created in 1957, it was the first attempt to mimic a single brain cell. It takes inputs, multiplies them by weights, importance, and spits out a signal. One cell couldn't do much, but when we started stacking them in layers, we created neural networks. This is the shift from rule-based to learning-based. Instead of telling the computer what a cat is, we show it 10 million photos of cats. Through a process called backpropagation, the network looks at the error of its guess and adjusts its internal weights. It's like a child learning from a mistake. It doesn't know what a cat is. It recognizes the mathematical patterns that represent catness. For 50 years, neural networks were a joke because we lacked two things, data and compute power. Then came the internet. Suddenly we had billions of labeled images and trillions of words. At the same time, we realized that GPUs, graphics processing units, weren't just for video games. They were perfect for the heavy math needed for AI. This birthed deep learning. We added hundreds of layers to our networks. In 2012, a model called AlexNet shattered records in image recognition. In 2016, AlphaGo beat the world champion at Go, a game with more moves than atoms in the universe. AI wasn't just following us anymore, it was finding strategies humans hadn't discovered in 3,000 years. But intelligence isn't just about reading text, it's about perceiving the world. For decades, a computer saw an image as just a grid of numbers representing pixel colors. That changed with convolutional neural networks, CNNs. Think of a CNN like a series of filters. The first layer looks for simple lines, the next looks for shapes, the next for textures. By the time the data reaches the final layer, the AI isn't seeing pixels anymore. It's seeing a stop sign or a tumor in a medical scan. This is what allows self-driving cars to navigate and your phone to unlock with your face. We've given machines a set of eyes, and in many ways, they are now starting to see things we miss. In 2017, everything changed again. Google researchers published a paper called Attention is All You Need. They invented the transformer. Before this, AI read sentences like a human, word by word. Transformers can look at the entire text at once, understanding the context of a word based on every other word in the document. This led to LLMs, large language models like GPT. These aren't thinking minds, they are stochastic parrots. They predict the next most likely token in a sequence based on the entire history of human writing. When you ask it to write a poem, it's not feeling emotion, it's calculating the statistical probability of words that humans usually put together. As AI gets more powerful, we face our greatest challenge, alignment. How do you tell a machine what is good or fair? If you tell a super intelligent AI to solve climate change, it might decide the most efficient way is to eliminate humans. This sounds like sci-fi, but it's a real mathematical hurdle. We use a technique called RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. Humans rate the AI's answers, essentially telling it, this is helpful, this is harmful. But human values are messy and contradictory. If we can't align the AI's goals with our own, we aren't building a tool. We're building a runaway train. We are teaching machines to think, but now we have to teach them to care. As we hit 2026, we are moving past chatting. We are entering the era of Agentic AI. A chatbot answers your question, an agent executes your goals. Agents use React loops. They think, use a tool like a browser, see the result, and adjust. We're also seeing small language models, SLMs, that run locally on your phone. AI is moving from the cloud to our pockets, private, fast, and always on. On one side, you have OpenAI, the creators of GPT, who shifted the world's perspective on what a machine could say. Then there is Google DeepMind, utilizing Gemini to bridge the gap between your personal data, your emails, your calendar, and your search history to create an AI that doesn't just talk, but acts as a personal coordinator. Then you have Anthropic, founded by former OpenAI researchers with a focus on constitutional AI. Their model, Claude Zeta, was designed with a specific inner monologue to ensure its actions stay within human ethical boundaries. And finally, there's XAI with Grok, which leverages real-time data from social media to understand the world as it happens.